My name's Ann Fisher, and I'm the Executive Director of Virginia Cares here in Virginia. Virginia Cares is an offender reentry program. We're a statewide program with 12 sites across the state assisting offenders when they come out of prison or jail and transition back into the community. One of the most difficult situations I would feel when you're leaving prison or jail is knowing where you're coming back to. The housing situation that you were in when you left may no longer exist. Your family may not be willing for you to come back, and the charge you had may even be somehow connected to either your family or to somebody you were living with. So it makes it extremely difficult, and it can be very scary, in my opinion, if you're coming out and need somewhere to go and you're not sure where you're going to be. I'd like to take a minute and go over a few questions and have you respond to them so that we can kind of get a feeling for how you feel about this type of situation. The first question would be, how important is your current housing situation to you and your family, so that you do not become reincarcerated? And of course the response is very important, somewhat important, I hadn't really thought about it, or not important at all. If you take a minute and answer that question, that would be great. Question number 2 is, what is your current housing situation? Are you living on your own, living with a roommate or family members, living in a transitional housing or in a shelter, or are you considered homeless? You have not had any shelter for 24 hours, which is the definition here in the state of Virginia for being homeless. What do you consider to be your greatest problem in finding housing? Your criminal record, your lack of employment or money, finding the right neighborhood, all of the above. Number 4 is, what would you consider to be the ideal housing situation for you? Living close to your family, living close to a place of employment, living in a new neighborhood away from the old influences that may have been part of the reason you wound up incarcerated, or living in another city or state. Number 5, what type of housing are you considering to solve your current immediate need? Public housing or Section 8? Privately owned rental, house or duplex? An apartment complex? Or living at home with a family member? Number 6, what type of housing goal are you striving for as you move through the process of settling back into the community? Would you prefer to rent? Would you rather just stay with relatives? Have some family around you? Would you eventually consider the idea of owning your own home? Is that something you think about? Or is it something that you don't really think about at all? As long as the roof's over your head, you're content. I want to talk to you a little bit about, and ask some questions about renting, how familiar you are with it. For any of you that have rented before, how much of a lease agreement do you actually read before you sign it, if you've ever signed it, one in the past? None of it? The parts in bold print? The signature lines? Or all of it? How do you feel when you sit down to go over the lease agreement and sign it? You feel scared, you don't have a full understanding of what you're signing, and you're afraid there may be some hidden clause that will end up costing you additional money or causing you problems? Are you hesitant, not fully comfortable with all the terms and phrases being used in the lease agreement, but willing to trust the landlord if he explains it? Are you comfortable understanding the overall meaning of the lease agreement before you sign it, and able to let the landlord know that you want to have someone look at it? or unconcerned. You really don't fully understand the agreement, but you're willing to sign it anyway and just get it over with. Question number 9 is, where is the best place to seek assistance in understanding the full meaning of a lease agreement before you sign it? Your parents or a family member, a friend, your children, a neighbor, an attorney or a paralegal. And number 10, where can you receive assistance in finding available housing resources in your community? An offender reentry program, the Department of Social Services in your community, your probation officer, federal housing programs, private nonprofit housing, all of the above, none of the above. I want to thank you for taking a few minutes to answer these questions for us, and I want to talk to you now a little bit about some of the situations you can encounter when you're looking for housing and some of the housing resources that exist for you out there. Now, some of you will have been lucky enough to have come out with a place to go home to, perhaps even family members who are waiting for you to welcome you. But more of you than not are facing being on the street or living in a homeless shelter for immediate shelter when you first come out. You might even have been lucky enough to have a release plan that includes a halfway house, such as maybe the Oxford House or Dorcas House, or similar temporary facility that will take care of the immediate problem. Many localities have transitional housing that's designed to provide immediate shelter until you can get on your feet, find a place of your own. These include community action agencies and faith-based organizations like the Salvation Army or the Rescue Mission. There are several agencies in most communities that should be able to assist with housing resources. They may require participation in their programs in return for some services, but it's usually a minimal participation, and it's well worth the return you get for the effort. Virginia Cares is the state's only statewide offender reentry program and has sites in 12 localities in Virginia. The staff in these programs are experienced in assisting returning citizens in finding housing. Virginia Cares is the only statewide member of an offender reentry coalition known as PAPIS, Virginia for Reentry. The remainder of the members are local agencies that specifically provide services, including housing assistance to returning citizens. And you'll see both these resource websites on the screen. There's also many local community action agencies across the state that have housing programs or may even have a reentry program. A listing of community action agencies in Virginia can be found at www.vacap, that's VACAP.org. That's also listed. This site lists the member agencies and then will give you information about the localities that they cover. Getting started in trying to find some more permanent shelter is not as difficult as you think. It's as easy as just asking for assistance. If you have access to the internet, 211 Virginia, which also is on the resource list, is a website that's designed to connect you with a lot of services. On this actual website, you can go to the different type of need that you have, housing being one, for example, specify the location you're interested in, and choose the program. Could be housing for immediate housing, could be mortgage counseling, could be housing counseling. There's a lot of different programs that they have that can help you in different areas. And it's not limited just to housing. You can find other services available there as well. All these programs and agencies can assist you in finding local housing resources. Eventually, you're going to be dealing with a place, renting a place to live, probably initially, as opposed to purchasing. Whether you find a place on your own, use a resource that you've been given by a reentry program, or learn about a place through word of mouth, you'll need to have an understanding of a lease agreement. In order to protect both the landlord and yourself as the renter, it is always important to have a written lease agreement that has been signed by all parties that are involved. Now, a lot of times, landlord's a friend or somebody and they'll tell you it's not a problem, you don't need a lease, we can do this, I'll agree to let you rent it, it's just going to be this much. If you don't have a written agreement, and it doesn't have to be formal, it can be a very simple statement that will qualify what you're renting, for how long you're renting it, how much you're paying, when you're paying it, and how much it covers, such as part of the utilities or maybe just the electricity, maybe it covers just your water bill. These things should be specified so that you are protected and you know what you owe money for and when you owe it. Sometimes the terms in a lease agreement can be very confusing. I was a legal secretary for 15 years, and there's still times when reading through a contract or a lease agreement in that nature is confusing to me. If you don't come in contact with these terms frequently and use them all the time, then they can be very misleading sometimes. It's important that you have an understanding of what the lease is telling you. The lease is going to let you know what you're renting, how much to pay, when to pay it, who gets paid, and what happens if you don't pay it on time. It will specify whether you can have pets, whether it's a non-smoking apartment, whether or not you can have an individual stay, and if so, for how long. All parties who have a financial interest, whether you have a roommate or the landlord who's receiving the money, yourself that's paying the money, should sign a lease so that there's a clear understanding of what's expected. It protects all of you. It's not that you don't trust somebody or they don't trust you. Under the law, it's going to protect you, and in the end, it's going to be well worth it. It's important that you feel comfortable when you sign your lease. There are several steps that you can take. If there are parts of the lease form that you don't understand, ask to take it to someone that can help explain it to you. A person not involved in the rental process of that particular property you're interested in. This could be an attorney, it could be someone at legal aid, a friend with real estate knowledge, or even a realtor if you know someone. A legitimate landlord is not going to mind you're getting a third person's opinion or assistance with the lease. In fact, they'll probably encourage you to do it. They want you to have an understanding. It helps to protect both of you. You should view the property personally and have a walkthrough done with the landlord or their representative. This will give you an opportunity to note any problems or issues with the property. Be sure and write them down. Be sure and sit down and talk to the landlord or the person representing them concerning the condition of the property. And make sure that you do a signed statement that you both sign in agreement. Set up some, if there's some broken window shades in there you want fixed, then make the agreement with the landlord to fix it. Don't just move in and then decide later that, or don't worry about it at all. And then when you leave and they come in and there's some damage there that may have been there when you moved in, they want to hold you responsible for it. You might not get part of your security deposit back. So it's very important that you come to an agreement, note the things that you want to have changed, and some of the leases that are prepared already come with a walkthrough form where you check off certain items and make notes of any deficiencies and then sign it, and they take care of it. Don't be afraid to ask questions. Be sure and be clear about the payment expectations. How long is the lease? When is the rent due? Who pays which utilities? What is the penalty for a late rent payment? Do they accept pets? And if they do, is there a pet fee or a pet deposit? And what's the difference between the two? How long after you move out does the landlord have to return your deposit to you if you're getting all or part of it back? When you get ready to leave after you've been renting, be sure and do a walkthrough again with the landlord or the representative, or document a walkthrough on camera. And again, make a list of issues. Make sure you're in agreement with the individual before you move out. Sign the lease or sign a statement, excuse me, and that goes over the issues that you had, if any, or that just says that the property was in good condition, and you and the landlord sign it, and that way there won't be any question when the time comes to return your deposit. There are a few little do's and don'ts to sharing an apartment, or if you're going to have a roommate. In your particular situation, I would think that this is extremely important. A lot of you are going to be on probation. That means that you need to be careful of who you're associating with. You'll have certain restrictions. And so it's important that if you're going to have a roommate, you have some idea of who the person is, and there's some about 4 or 5 different things that you can look at or do that will help you to select a roommate that will be most compatible with you. One of the things that it's very important to do is think about what you would consider to be the perfect roommate. Get an idea in your head of who you would like to have, the type of person you would like to have with you. It would be very helpful if you could choose a roommate who has a similar personality to you, similar lifestyle or habits. You have things in common, then there's going to be, it's going to be easier to get along. Expectations will be the same. Check references before you ask someone to move in. A lot of people don't even think about doing that, but it's just as important for a roommate, maybe more so than it is for an employee. You're gonna, this person's sharing your house. You want them to, or your apartment. You want to know about them, and you want to know what other people think about them. You can take a friend along for a second opinion if you're going to meet your potential roommate. Sit down and talk with them. It's good to get somebody else's opinion and get some input afterwards. And be prepared to make a good impression yourself. You want to present a good image of who you are, so that the individual that you're meeting with or interviewing as a potential roommate thinks that you're going to be someone they want to live with. Some of the do nots. Do not choose a roommate that anyone else in your household does not like. If you have more than one roommate, everybody needs to get along, and so if there's somebody that is, already there who is dead set against someone for one reason or another, that situation's not going to get any better by having the individual move in. Don't take the easy way out and just move in with someone because you haven't found anything else yet. Be patient. Transitional living and temporary living isn't the most fun, but it's a lot easier than having to pick up and move several times because you've picked the wrong roommate, moved into the wrong apartment or something. Don't choose a roommate on impulse. You're out in the restaurant and you're having dinner and the waiter's really nice. Just because he says he needs a place to live and you need a roommate, let's not pick him up and take him home and move him in. Let's get to know somebody. Let's weigh the pros and cons of who they are and what they do and how they're going to fit in your life. Don't be late to interviews or when meeting with your prospective roommate. Don't make promises to them you can't keep. Be honest and upfront. Don't choose to live with someone or choose a roommate just because it's going to ease the financial burden. Personality traits and lifestyle are just as important, if not more important, for a long-term roommate relationship as having the money. There's a few secrets that we have that are for successful living with roommates. Make a plan with your roommates on how disputes are going to be handled. Disputes and conflicts can pull people apart. They cause uneasiness in the house. They can make it to where your home should be someplace you come home to and relax and feel comfortable in. That doesn't happen if you haven't taken the time to set up a way to handle what is inevitable in disputes or arguments, things where you're going to disagree. We're all human. Set up rules with your roommates about entertaining, relationships, shopping, cleaning, and finances. You should be on the same page on those areas. If you're not going to be someone who likes wild parties, then let's not get somebody to move in with us who likes to throw wild parties. And let's make sure that there's an agreement that if you've or whoever has bought the groceries, or how you're going to divide them up, or what goes where, and what's available for common consumption and what is, belongs to the individual. Cleaning is that's a real important thing. How irritated do you get when you come in after you've been working all day and your roommate works nights and your sink's full of dirty dishes? And I'm just saying, because when I go out of town and come back and find dirty dishes from my husband, I'm not a happy camper. So you want to have these agreements in place so that it just is going to make this situation as easy as possible. Create a budget so the bills are paid on time. Not just the rent, but the utilities, the phone bill, cable bill if you have it, who's responsible for what portion of it, and when the money needs to be in hand so that it can be sent out and payments made on time. As happens in every situation where you have more than one person living together, there's going to be times of stress, disagreement, arguments. Take time away from that. If a situation is getting stressful and it's getting to the point where you feel like you're not really sure how long you can cope with it, step away. Go for a ride, go for a walk, go visit a friend, go watch a movie, go walk around the mall, but take some time apart, breathe a little bit, calm down, and you'll find that you can deal with the issues much better after that. Discuss issues with your roommates that make you unhappy as they occur. Don't bottle them up. Don't hold on to them and wait for that big explosion. If you discuss the things as they come up and they do the same for you out of respect for you, situations that could turn into big disagreements may be resolved at a level that is much calmer. And here's 5 big habits that you need to avoid when you have a roommate. Don't talk to your roommate about an issue when you're unhappy or stressed or angry. Again, this is the walk away theory. Walk away a little bit, take a deep breath. Do not raise issues concerning the household situation, the roommate situation, in front of your roommate's friends or family who might be there. Those are matters between the two of you, and if they use that same respect in dealing with you, then you're going to, be more comfortable to discuss these things. Nobody feels good to have issues brought up in front of other people. It's very embarrassing. It makes you very uncomfortable. Do not spend money or household expenses on a as-needed basis. In other words, don't try to save up the rent money 2 days before it's due. Don't try to, or if you've got your rent money saved up, don't decide that you're going to throw a party and buy the food and drink for it, and then you're scraping your rent money together at the end of the month. Make sure that the expenses that you've set aside, the money you've set aside to pay your expenses, you don't touch them. They're always there. They're always available when you have to make the bill payments. Don't fix anything in the apartment like broken windows, broken doorknobs. Don't change locks before you call the landlord. Call the landlord first. Find out what they want you to do in it. They may want to send their person around to do it. They may agree to let you do it, but you need to talk to them first, because ultimately that property belongs to them. They get to make the call and how it's taken care of. And don't ever plan a party or a gathering or buy household items that are for the use of the entire household without talking to your roommate. They have a say in these things. it may be something you want to buy, you may be spending your money, but out as a courtesy, you need to at least discuss this matter with them. And these are just some things that I found that when I think back on it many years ago, I wish I'd known when I was getting roommates. There would have made some things a whole lot easier. Once you've gotten to in the position where you've been renting for a while, steady employment, you're working, you're maybe thinking, you may have run into somebody and you're thinking about settling down with an individual, or even on your own, you're thinking that you'd like to own a home, you'd like to contribute to your community in a positive way by owning a piece of property there, having a say in the neighborhood, what's going on, and having a little bit of equity or responsibility, I guess, to your own home. The longer you keep a job and the harder you work to take care of any outstanding debts and pay them down, the better your chances are of moving on to home ownership. There are several key components for home ownership and many resources to assist in the process. One of the most important things is your credit score. A credit score is defined as a measure of credit, or the measure of the credit risk that's calculated from a credit report using a formula that I wouldn't even begin to understand. But what they do is look at your, how you pay your bills. And believe me, it's just as important to pay your bills on time as it is to pay your bills at all. Being consistently late with your bills, it does not show responsibility. And the people that are going to be lending you money to buy a home and taking that risk that you're going to pay that money back to them, they want to see that you're being responsible. If you have no credit references, some sort of credit reference is needed to get a loan. You need to, I don't like to recommend credit cards, but I would say, maybe a limited amount of money on a credit card, a small amount, something that you turn around and pay off every month. You're not accruing any interest on. Establish a lot of times they tell people in high school, get a department store credit card or something like that can help you a little bit. Now you can get free credit reports from each of the 3 credit bureaus that exist, and I'll have a slide for that, or I should have a slide for that. It doesn't include your score, but you can get the score for a fee, but it does tell you where your credit ballpark lies. A lot of times you're going to want to check your credit score to make sure that the information that's being reported to it is accurate. If you go in there and you have a report in there that you've been late on payments to a certain, maybe a store or a bill or something, and you've paid it on time, then you need to get in touch with the individuals that you're paying and get that corrected so that your credit score will reflect your dependability when it comes in making payments. Another major item when you move towards home ownership is acquiring a down payment. Now, down payment is a sum of money that is required that you put down on a large purchase. Sometimes a car, sometimes a house. It's the initial portion of the total amount due that is paid up front. It's usually cash, and it's not part of your loan. It's not part of the loan. This is something where this is your good faith payment that you're saying, I'm going to put this much down and then I will take the loan for the rest. The amount of your down payment, the size of it, how large it's going to be, how small, is based a lot on your credit worthiness, and that's where your credit score comes into play. Because the better your credit score is, the less money you're going to have to put down initially, and the more willing the bank or the mortgage company is going to be to take the risk and loan you the money It's also going to assist in your interest rate. Another thing that's important when you're thinking about moving towards home ownership is your employment. You need to maintain employment. You need to have steady employment. You don't necessarily have to be at the same place for 20 years, but a consistency in employment is very helpful, and no large gaps of unemployment. That's one of the, because let's be honest, the person holding the mortgage, the bank, the mortgage company, they're going to be looking at your employment. They're going to be looking at how much you make to see whether or not you're going to be able to make these payments that they're going to require every month. The better and longer your employment is, the easier it's going to be to get a loan company or a mortgage company or bank to help underwrite your mortgage on a home. Again, there are a number of resources that you can go to for information concerning home ownership. There's the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, Legal Aid, Housing Opportunities Made Equal of Virginia, Money Management International, the National Foundation for Credit Counseling, community action agencies in Virginia. Again, a lot of them have home ownership programs. They have loan programs, and can help you, especially if you're in a lower income bracket. The United States Department of Housing and Urban Development. All of these areas have different plans that can assist you in acquiring a home or getting a loan to acquire a home. I know I've gone over a lot of information. I probably spoke very quickly, and I'm hoping that some of this has been helpful to you. I'm hoping that the resources I've given you will assist you in finding the information that you would need for whether you're renting, whether you're looking for transitional housing, or whether you're ready to move on into home ownership. I have a few questions I'd like for you to answer. It's just 3 here at the end, so that you can give me some idea of whether or not I've given you any helpful information. The first question, after going through the housing component of the Virginia Cares curriculum, how do you feel about the housing solutions that may exist in your area? I understand a little better what is available. I'm still confused on some of the issues, but feel I know where to look. I am still uncomfortable with the ideas of finding suitable housing on my own. I don't think it made much difference to me. The second question, do you think Virginia offers enough options for finding housing assistance? Yes, no, or not sure. And the third question, after going through the session, do you think you'll be interested in home ownership once you become established in a job and your community? Yes, I think home ownership is something I want to look for in the future. No, I'm perfectly happy renting and don't want the responsibility of home ownership. Or C, it's not something I'm really thinking about right now. Again, I want to thank you for taking time with me and going over this housing issue. If you have any questions, you can talk to your case manager. You can contact some of the resources I've given you. And I wish you a lot of luck in completing the Virginia Cares curriculum and moving on. Thank you.